Today's project is Simplicity 1364, a reproduction Jiffy pattern. This pattern is extremely easy to put together and takes only about 1 hour to complete. It's great for small amounts of fabric that you might have left over in your stash, and that is what I am using today. On this fabric, I'm using the French seam method. I am going to show another angle of this so that you can get a better idea of how this comes together. In order to complete a French seam, you're going to sew the wrong sides together first with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. After you've completed the first step, you'll turn the fabric so that the right sides are together. You're going to gently press your seam so that it lays flat, and then you are going to do a second seam to encase the first seam and subsequently the raw edges. So I have the shell put together, and so you can see here is what it looks like when you do the first step for your French seams. So it's obviously going to look wrong, but that's what you want it to look like initially. So you want to have the wrong sides together, sew it, and then we're going to flip this inside out and we're going to sew this again. And what you'll end up having is a seam that's completely encased. And the next step we're going to do is setting in the sleeves, because that's going to be different than how it would normally be done, so I'll show that in the next step. All put together, and you can see it's a close-up view of how nice this is. Nice and encased. You can't see any serging, anything like that. Here's another seam. So this is the back seam. This is the shoulder seam. So definitely good to use this kind of finish on a fabric like this where you can see through it. So now I'm going to set in the sleeves, show you how I'm going to do those, and this will be just about done. So here's my sleeve pinned in. Here's the outer fabric. This is the sleeve. I have pinned the wrong sides together. This is the seam, the outside seam for the bodice, and I just line this up with the seam on the sleeve. If I can grab it, I'll actually show it to you. When I do the sleeves with the French seam, I do the sleeves first. So this sleeve is finished. So that means I have already done the French seam on the actual sleeve itself. And then, of course, all of the seams for the bodice are done. That way this goes together and it looks nice and clean. So I'll put this onto the machine. I'm going to go ahead and stitch. I'm just going to go ahead and finish it and then show what it looks like when it's completed. Here is the sleeve set in before I finish the French seam, so you can see that obviously it does not look right, and this is what you want when you're finishing your sleeve. This is just the same step as the rest of it, and what I would say is if you have never done these before, so see, this is how it's going to get. That'll be the end result. But if you have never done a French seam before, what I would suggest doing is pinning your pieces in place and then go ahead and turn it out turn it right side out, and see if it looks the way that it's supposed to look before you go ahead and do any stitches, because chances are if you're using this stitch, then it's a delicate fabric and it's something that it's going to be difficult to rip the seams out of. So do a practice run first and then make it permanent. But this is the step, and then I'm going to go ahead, turn this inside out, finish it up. We'll finish this neck and the hem and be done. Here is the finished product. You can see sleeves look great. These sleeves are modified for me. I like a little bit bigger sleeve, or flouncy sleeve. Not sure what you would call that, but I like those little details, so I have modified that for my taste. I have just folded the edge under and stitched it down. I assure you this will never see the inside of a washing machine, so I am not very worried about that. And also doing it this way doesn't take away from the fabric, whereas I feel like if I had serged the edges, it would make too much of a difference in the way that the fabric looks, or even doubling it up. I'm not really crazy about how that looks. I just wanted to try to preserve the integrity of the fabric as much as possible, at least for me. So that is our 1 hour project. If you would like to see more detailed pictures of this completed project, along with more tutorial videos on how to do French seams, you can visit my website www.greenacrevintage.com.